In the early 2000s, in the span of 8 years, Rockstar released GTA 3, Vice City, San Andreas, and GTA 4 and had an extra year to spare. That's what Rockstar did in 8 years. And now it has been 8 years since the last GTA game. But now we have a release.
It's finally
8 years after GTA 5. They have given us Grand Theft Auto, the Trilogy, the Definitive Edition.
There is a form of multimedia entertainment beyond that which is good. These games are as vast in number as they are terrible. They dwell in the dark recesses of history, unearthed from the pits of the bargain bin. These are the games of horror. This is Garbage Game Night.
Welcome to Garbage Game Night, a podcast where we normally take a look back at older games. We try to see if there's any good ideas in there that could be recycled, brought back from the past. Well, sometimes developers do that, and they label it a remaster. And the gamers of the internet have assembled recently. They've sharpened their pitchforks, they've lit their oil rags on torches, and they're coming for Rockstar Games. Yeah, the target of the internet's ire, or at least one of the targets recently, is GTA 3 Trilogy that has been remastered, and it's unusual for us to tackle a new game. This one actually came out less than a month ago as of recording this, but sometimes you hear about some hot trash and you just can't resist. You live fast and eat trash. That's what we always say, right, guys? Our motto.
Yeah.
We're always saying
I've said it twice.
So what we're talking about today is Grand Theft Auto, the Trilogy, the Definitive Edition. And these are some of the most influential video games of all time. These three games, they have diverse settings, and I'm just one pasty white guy born in the 80s, so I'm going to need a diverse cast to help handle these environments. So here are two other pasty guys born in the 80s. I was going to have our oldest normal member tackle the oldest GTA 3 of the trilogy, Tom, but he's our most mature, some would say, at least in age, and he's not here with us this evening. He may be tacking on later in the podcast when he can jump in.
So you guys can tune in later if you want.
Yeah, just jump to the end. If you
we'll make a big announcement.
He's our most Michael Madsen, if you would.
Yeah, he is our most Michael Madsen. But handling the second game of the trilogy, which is Vice City, is a Florida native expat, Hunter. How are you, Hunter?
I'm doing well, man. I'm doing really well. How are you?
Oh, I'm good, thank you. All right, I'll give you 2 points. And of course, our inner city gang violence correspondent, Frank. He's going to be handling San Andreas. Frank, how are you?
Good. And I just have one little question. How come only white people are called expats?
Did we have this discussion before? I was having this discussion with someone the other day. Yeah, it's if you're fleeing violence or something, you're an immigrant, you're a refugee. But if you're just a white guy living in a
Thailand,
different, even if you have money and you're moving into I blame House Hunters International. That's who I blame. Anyway, we're gonna get into these games, but first, do I have my button? Does this work? It does work. Okay.
No.
This is our Trash Talk news section, previously known as Meta News. I'm just going to rebrand it. I'm going to change the section. We're talking about the game that we did in the past, as well as any other gaming news and any games you guys have been playing. This is just our Trash Talk section. So first, last game we played wasn't really a trash game. It wasn't a trash game at all. It was about cleaning up trash is what it was. It was Power Wash Simulator. Played it while we did the Trashies on our last episode. Have you guys spent any more time cleaning up pixels?
No.
No, okay.
I intended on it. I fully intended on it. And Carly even said she wanted to try it, but we just never did.
Yeah. You did message me, though, that the beta that came out for it like a week after we used it added multiplayer, which I'm kind of upset about because we could have all been in the same game, cleaning up the same park. That's pretty wild.
Would have saved a lot of time.
In another year.
Yeah, next Trashies we'll revisit. Absolutely. All right, and like I said, we can inject some gaming stuff in here about what we've been playing. I was going to start off and just throw in that I've been playing a lot of Frostpunk. It's it's interfering with my preparations for the podcast. It's a really fun resource management game with good, depressing, dire atmosphere vibes and a really good soundtrack. Definitely recommend that. They just announced Frostpunk 2. So, that's what I've been up to. And you guys playing anything interesting?
Well, Chris, as you may know and have seen, I've been getting back into a little No Man's Sky.
Oh.
Yeah.
I think I saw you surveying a planet the other day.
Yeah, they re-released all the expeditions, and actually tomorrow is the last day to finish the first expedition that they re-released.
Oh,
and
so like there's time
I might be able to finish it. You know, I don't know. We'll see what time we end tonight. You know what I mean?
I'm actually thinking about jumping on to do the second expedition because it's the Normandy, right?
Exactly. But the next one's the Normandy.
It took them like 13 hours.
The one after that,
wow.
You get those creepy monster creatures as a pet. And the third one is about worms. It's really Dooney, you know? It's all about, I think, flying worms. So
sure.
Check out No Man's Sky. It's still rocking and rolling, baby. Still rocking and rolling.
It's still good.
Carly and I have been jumping into Back 4 Blood. We picked that one up. It's been a lot of fun. I find it very satisfying. I think I don't know if you've played it at all, but
I don't think I've seen any of it. How is it? I mean, obviously it's a spiritual successor to Left 4 Dead. How is it compared to that? You're better or what?
I think it's not as simplistic. Like, they added in a lot more stuff that I like. I'm still like getting the hang of it. I'm still finding the difficulty level because sometimes it seems like you're just not prepared at all, and other times it seems very easy. But basically now each character brings something different to the team and themselves. Like, based on who you pick, you'll either get like more ammo or more health or faster run speed or whatever, versus like you still pick up different guns. You can upgrade guns now with different parts throughout, and there's a deck building system now.
Oh, interesting.
Because they're not like zombies. It's, I think you called it a spiritual successor. Yeah, they're not the zombies from Left 4 Dead. They're called Ridden, and they're like parasitic worms that get into you and make you like a zombie.
Yummy.
Which makes a lot more sense as far as like zombie lore goes.
Yeah. And it's a really cool story so far. I have a couple criticisms. Like, the acts end very anticlimactically. Like, I just was playing around with a build last night that was a shotgun build that had like all of my cards had like either increased shotgun damage, increased spread, and then there's another card that I had that every pellet that hits an enemy gives me like temporary health for like a couple seconds. So basically I would like shoot 3 zombies and then another one would come up and hit me and I would go back down and just like shoot 3 more.
Yeah.
And I picked up like a
vampiric shotgun.
I think it's called like a A12. It's that automatic shotgun, and you just see like my temporary health bar like just and so cool. It's a lot of fun. We've really been enjoying it.
Do you know what because on Steam it's listed as mixed right now, like not that many people recommend. Do you know what the internet horde, why they're piling on?
I think it doesn't feel as balanced, I'd say. Like, it really is like some hordes you'll just like, it's like 3 or 4 zombies come out and you're like, what was that? And then other ones they just like throw everything at you. I'll be honest, like, I think it could have used a lot more polish. Like, again, like you'll be like defending against a horde, and the second the timer is out, like you made it to the time limit, it just ends, and you're like sitting there like having a drink, and everybody's like, yeah, this is great, look at what we did, we're good. But you're like, I was literally being grabbed by like what's called a tall boy, one of the Ridden mutations, and then I was safe and everything was fine because we reached the timer. So it just and I don't think that Left 4 Dead ever really had like a huge. It does feel like there's like a lack of polish.
Well, that's I guess that's definitely a theme with games coming out these days, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. It's a nice segue into this, right?
Yeah. Lack of polish.
Speaking of lack of polish, some other games that are kind of getting the same, they're being dunked on by the internet and Metacritic review bombs. Battlefield 2042 is getting quite a bit of that, and it dipped into the lowest user score that Metacritic has ever had. It's the only other thing I was going to mention, that everyone hates Blizzard Activision. Apparently, mostly their own staff. Raven Software, who does the quality assurance for Warzone, Call of Duty Warzone, are doing walk-offs today after surprise layoffs. And I think the lesson is that publicly traded companies ruin video game development. So anyway, we're going to jump into this publicly traded company. So let me set the scene. We're going to finally talk about some GTA here. So let me set the timeline of Grand Theft Auto for us all, so we're all familiar with kind of the rollout. Because anyone who plays video games, says they play video games, they're aware of the Grand Theft Auto series, probably played some of them, but I'm going to set the timelines of these game releases out. So the first Rockstar releases in the Grand Theft Auto series are GTA 1 and 2. They are what's called the 2D universe. They're top-down. We've probably all seen some examples of them. I'm playing them on stream right now, but they're top-down views. You get into a car, you drive around, you can run over people, make blood splatters, and do kind of drive-bys in the cars, or be on foot and kind of just spray around in a top-down, very arcadey kind of feel. They were released in 1997 and 1999. They were known for being, over-the-top violent, and they're fairly successful, but weren't leaders in the industry by any means. Then what comes out is called the 3D universe.
Did you ever play GTA 1 and 2? Because I did.
I owned GTA 2, yeah. Yeah, I owned that on PlayStation Original way back in the day, and that was like one of those discs you kept away from your parents. You wouldn't let them see you play that one, because I would have been like 5th and 6th grade, something like that, playing GTA 2. That's the one that I owned. Yeah.
I played it at my cousin's house on his computer, and I'm 99% sure it was a ripped copy. So we were, my cousin was the one that I got all of my ripped games. He'll remain unnamed, but we had a
so that Rockstar doesn't come after.
Yeah, we had a DVD case, CD case.
Nice.
Of computer games, I think PlayStation 1 games stuff, and I remember GTA 2, and I remember there was like a really good gang territory system, I think, in GTA 2. My memory is a little fuzzy, but I feel like they kind of left that behind.
It made an appearance again in San Andreas. They reintroduced the territories thing, but yeah, they definitely left it out when they went to GTA 3. And that was when we say GTA 3, what we're talking about is the 2001. It was October 2001. That's the one where you're kind of an unnamed character, although later they named him Claude.
Oh, that's awful.
But in Liberty City.
Terrible name.
And apparently it's a carryover from, I think, GTA 2 or possibly 1, where the character's name was Claude Fast or something. So it was kind of a reference to that. So I'm showing some of the GTA 3 original on stream right now, but that was released on PS2 and about a year or two later on PC. It was extremely well received. It set the bar, a new bar, very high for a sandbox style open world game as far as physics and weapons, and introduced the wanted level system. It's got a 97 on Metacritic. It's the 6th highest rated game ever on Metacritic. And then the GTA franchise went dark for an entire 12 months. Whew. And Vice City was released. Yeah, the whole 12 months without a release. Vice City was released in October 2002 on PS2, so a whole year later. The game was very similar to GTA 3, but it just expanded everything as missions, mission concepts, some gameplay aspects where they added motorcycles. Visually, it looks a lot better. There's a larger map, 95 out of 100 on Metacritic aggregate. And then, once again, the GTI franchise went dark for an entire 2 years this time. And on October 2004, GTA 3 San Andreas came out.
Is it labeled as GTA 3?
It's not. It's just called Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, but
that's what I was
it is
gonna say.
in the GTA 3 or the 3D universe, they call it.
Okay.
So it expanded the game engine a bit more, even though technically they were on the same engine still, and the mechanics of the series quite a bit, which we'll get into a bit more later. But the game is tied for the 5th highest scoring game on PS2 history, sitting at a 95 on Metacritic. So those 3 games are what comprise the 3D universe of GTA, and what the trilogy what we're playing tonight is based on. So just put that in your pocket. Tuck that away. That's the 3D universe. That's the trilogy that we're playing tonight. We're going to come back to that. But I'm going to keep going with the GTA series just so, we have that timeline. GTA 4, 4 years after that, GTA 4 was released. And GTA 4 is the one that focuses on the story of Niko Bellic coming to Liberty City. It's on the PS3 and 360 was where it was originally released. Console versions have an aggregate score of 98, tied for the 2nd highest rated game on Metacritic. And they've released a few expansions, kind of standalone mobiles, including Lost in the Dam, Chinatown Wars, Ballad of Gay Tony as an expansion. So these games, this game starts what they refer to as the HD universe, which includes the next game, which 5 years after GTA 4, they released GTA 5. And I want us to just take a moment and think about the passage of time for a second. In 2013, GTA 5 was released. Right now, it's the final months of 2021, which I don't like saying, but it's the final months of 2021. And that was the most recent GTA game to come out 8 years ago.
Oof.
There have been 3 different sitting presidents in that time, 96 months. Here are some things that happened in 2013. The Boston Marathon bombing, the NSA leaks with Edward Snowden, Lance Armstrong admitted to doping, Paul Walker died in a car crash, and the movies Iron Man 3 and Thor: The Dark World were released. That was 2013. So looking at it in a different way, in the early 2000s, in the span of 8 years, Rockstar released GTA 3, Vice City, San Andreas, and GTA 4 and had an extra year to spare. That's what Rockstar did in 8 years. And now it has been 8 years since the last GTA game, but now we have a release.
It's finally
8
time.
years after GTA 5, they have given us Grand Theft Auto, the Trilogy, the definitive edition. So that's what we're playing tonight. But since we just talked about all the GTA games, have you guys played maybe all of them, or a little bit of all of them? Did you focus on any of them in particular before?
Just Vice City and San Andreas. Grand Theft Auto Vice City was the first Grand Theft Auto game that I ever owned. I was a wee child that shouldn't have owned it, but it's just a part of growing up, with parents who don't understand video games, is you just get some really cool games sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes it happens. And
actually, one of my friends had actually owned it and brought it over, so that's how I got the idea of getting it, because we were playing it. It was a lot of fun. But then, when San Andreas came out, we got it not immediately after it came out, but pretty close after that. And during that time, I did play Grand Theft Auto 2. I knew someone who had Grand Theft Auto 2, and I was like, oh, and I really did enjoy the top-down aspect of it.
Yeah.
I thought that was really
totally
neat.
Different game.
And that was fun on its own right.
Mm-hmm.
But probably Vice City was what I played the most, and then close second is probably San Andreas.
And Hunter?
Definitely played, like I said, a lot of GTA 2. I don't have any memory. GTA 5 is the only game that I ever beat of the GTA franchise, because I just, got sidetracked and either lost interest after a while. And actually, like, in that same genre, I've played, beaten, and put many hours into oh my god, I can't think of the name of it right now. It's the more comedic kind of GTA game, but it's not by Rockstar or whatever.
Oh,
big purple dildo bat.
It's Saints Row.
Yeah, Saints Row. I played a lot more Saints Row.
Oh yeah,
than
I played the fuck
GTA.
out of Saints Row.
Yeah. So, but I did play GTA 5. I did play Vice City and GTA 3. I don't think I played much San Andreas. It's been so long, and I never played through the story, so I don't remember the characters. I don't have any of that.
It has been a long time, and going back and playing, I played all of them quite a bit, and I thought, in my memory, I was like, oh, I barely played Vice City at all, but as I was playing the missions, I was like, oh no, I spent a ton of time in this game, and I beat the hell out of GTA 3, and San Andreas, I had forgotten. It's been a long time. It's been interesting revisiting these games despite things that we're about to talk about in the state that it is in, like the memories that it brought back. One of my biggest kind of surprises was that Grand Theft Auto has always been very over the top, like the missions and everything, but I've always viewed Saints Row as being it's the silly version of Grand Theft Auto. But once you get into the missions of Grand Theft Auto, you realize oh, this game's always been. I was doing a mission where I was controlling an RC plane dropping
that fucking RC plane mission
boats.
I
forgot
just did that
one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm playing some footage in the background of me playing through all these games, and I'll jump through them as we're discussing them. As I was writing my notes, I think I'm going to, just for fun, side with the developers, just to create chaos and give you someone to argue against. So I mean, I don't know your guys' take on this yet, but so you launch into the definitive edition version of these games. Immediate thoughts, regardless of what you guys heard about these games, you launch them up, you boot them up. Hunter, what's your first impression about looking at what these games look like?
Visuals of the background, the cars and everything, I don't have a problem with. The people immediately throw me off. The models look absolutely terrible. Again, I trying to remember for comparison, but it's been so long that I should probably just watch a video.
Yeah, Frank, what do you think?
This might be a mildly controversial. Yeah, I don't mind it at all. Mostly because I did play. I did download the versions that they released for Steam, which I don't know what the differences are from the main releases and the ones that are on Steam. My understanding is that they may have patched some songs out and some other stuff.
Yes.
But apparently the original version 1.0 from Steam was basically the same originals that were released. I think overall, the graphics wise, it's pretty similar to the original release. And man, did it didn't really look good then, you know? So while these look horrific, it's not like
it's in a different way.
It's a different type of horrific. Like I know one of the screenshots that a lot of people like to use when comparing this and the other one is there's a screenshot of San Andreas. It's in the beginning. It's like
where Smoke is riding around on the bicycle
it's Ryder.
with his arms.
It's Ryder.
Oh, it's Ryder.
It's Ryder,
okay.
and his
I'm
arms.
sorry.
He looks like an orangutan. His arms are like all like long. It's that's how it was in the original, and it just.
Oh, is it? That's
it's just the fact that they didn't fix it. You know. Also, CJ kind of looks weird when you look at it. You're like, it's not the best, and then they just kind of made an HD version of that. You know, they really didn't fix anything. They kind of just made everything HD and just hit
so you're
re-export.
saying it was already broken.
Yeah. That's my understanding of the situation based off of what I've seen and like some comparisons that I've seen other people make too. Where it's just like no, they literally didn't really fix anything. They just made an like HD skinned it. That's all they did.
Pretty much. That's what it feels like.
Yeah. So on Twitch right now, I'm pausing on that scene that you're talking about. The guy's neck right now. He's making a perfect like C shape with his spine and his head, and then he's going to come around and we're going to see his arm, and there's the screenshot that everyone gets where his bicep is like in the wrong direction. You're right, like maybe this looked that wonky back then, but now that we have it in HD and it's supposed to be the definitive edition, we're looking at it with a more scrutinized eye, and like this is not where our standards are in 2021 that the game should look like that.
Not.
My kind of hot take from going back to GTA 3 and playing GTA 3 in 2021, even if you had a perfect port of the game, like without bugs, the story is bad. That's my hot take. Like it's not interesting. I'm not interested in the missions at all. The characters aren't compelling, and there's not enough to interact with. It's just not the mission. Like the mission structure for GTA 3, you can drive from one place to another place. You can kill a person. You can pick up a person, and you can compact a car. Those are essentially all the elements that they will mix and match to create missions, and it gets old so fast. So I don't know. I don't think there was like a reason that you needed to remaster it. I mean, that's a big question that I kind of have throughout this is like, why remaster it? And I have some of those answers, I guess, that and I can jump into them about why this was done.
Can I say why?
Yeah.
Money.
It's been 8 years.
So for Rockstar, they were making plenty of money with Grand Theft Auto Online.
And they also did release Red Dead Redemption 2
hurting.
during that time.
They did, to be fair. Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll give you some background on why the definitive edition. How did we end up with this? Well, in an interview with Rich Rosato, who is a Rockstar producer, his reasoning that he said was preservation, which seems kind of counterintuitive to create something new for the sake of preservation of these old games, but he said it was a way to maintain the titles for the next decade plus without having to rip our hair out every time there's a crash bug that we're having problems fixing because we're using some terrible old tools. He continues that, so it was the case of dealing with the real world dilemma of having digital marketplaces like Steam or their own Rockstar store, and the fact that they're slowly replacing the physical markets. So like people can't buy San Andreas. I mean, they can't buy it because of the hot coffee conundrum, but they can't buy the version of it that exists because of it's being replaced with the digital marketplaces. And there was this very nervous caveat to it, he said, that which was don't change the feel of the game. And this is all from an interview with USA Today. And they said that in development they found that GTA 3 was the most difficult to port, while San Andreas was the easiest. I don't know the reasons for this personally. My guess is that due to the lower fidelity textures in the early one, when you try and bring them into this HD engine, it's going to look lacking. And they said that like when they ported it over to, it was going from the renderware engine into Unreal 4, which is what this game's running in now. It just looks empty. Like, I mean, it used to look gritty and dirty because it was running at low resolution, but now like you bring in these like a 16 polygon face car into this universe that is so polished it looks so bland. So they tried a few solutions, like remaking some of the main structures, like your house and things that you interact with, but it didn't seem to fit. So they actually ended up rebuilding many of the assets from scratch, and I think this is the most telling part, they created an AI program to upscale textures and then manually adjust things afterwards. So and Rich Rosato estimates that 100,000 textures were changed from the original version to this version. And I think that's kind of the explanation for why so much of the game looks
so terrible
and has the bugs that it does, is that they fed it through an engine that took this texture that was, 5 kilobytes in size, and they scaled it up to 5,000 kilobytes to fit in this engine that handles textures that large, and you end up with faces that look like they're out of a fucking Pixar movie and don't fit the rest of the way. It looks like they're mobile game characters. I think that's mainly why the look of some of these things just feel off. So that was their reasoning as far as like why did they need a definitive edition, because essentially if San Andreas is going to live on Steam and it's supposedly a game that will run on your computer, well, they're going to continue releasing updates for your video card, and for things are going to go obsolete, like another operating system is going to go obsolete and it's not going to be supported anymore. So how are they going to continue running San Andreas on Windows 14, and with a video card that doesn't exist yet? They feel like they need to upgrade it to more common engine, Unreal Engine 4, so that they can continue to patch things as necessary. So how do you feel about that excuse?
It doesn't go with let's change the look of everything if you're trying to preserve it.
Yeah, and I'm zooming in on a face right now that looks so...
They're horrific.
It looks kind of otherworldly. They don't match. So I said that they rebuilt a lot of the things, but they did, as they were filling in the gaps, like inside houses, some scenes, they said they used assets from GTA 5 because they had them available just to kind of make it feel more upscale and more... a more developed world. So there are a couple scenes, I think I have one recorded somewhere in here, where like you're in someone's kitchen and in the background is this I think San Andreas is supposed to take place in like 94. It's in the early 90s, but there's a dishwasher that is clearly from like 2015 or so, and it's because they just grabbed an asset from someone's house in GTA 5 and dropped it into San Andreas. And I don't know, it's all so ham-fisted and sloppy, all this implementation, that I hear them that they wanted to bring this into the new world, a new engine, and to make the argument for them. So I can understand how you have the master game files for this game, that you create an integration, the way that you translate the game files from an old engine to a new one, which like is no small task. Like it's not like a game that's even running on Unreal 2 and you just need to upgrade it to Unreal 4 or something. This is a game that was on an entirely different engine, and like I don't even understand how they work. So like you're coming up with your own software program to convert the language from the other engine, and you get it into this new engine and it's in a playable state, and you realize like once you convert everything that like, yikes, this looks bad. It looks nothing like the original. A lot of the reason it has to do with lighting, which they talked a lot about. Like the lighting of the old game, the way that the textures were like they had baked in lighting, and the new engines don't do that anymore, not much anyways. They use like real world lighting, and it's very visible in these games too. Like when you see like a checkpoint that you're trying to run to, like anytime like the like I'm looking at a police car's lights lighting up right now, and the ground is lighting up because of that. Like these are all like new engine things that weren't in the original one. So, but you get all that new stuff in there, how it's handling the animation, utilizing the wireframes. It doesn't look good, but you spend some time kind of just working out the kinks, and the entire 2 years of work they're doing on it, like I can imagine how you're seeing like progress come along, and you're wow, this is starting to look more like the original, as we like take the vision of the original and try and like manually put it in there, and you get that like that bias that you're that you're just kind of in the weeds of making it look better. But the reality is, like, this version of the game that they released, that doesn't make it good, just because you ported it to an engine, you do a lot of work on that doesn't mean like the state that it is in right now is good. It still is jarring for one of us to look at it and be like, this is GTA 3 or this is Vice City. even you've got that nostalgia brain too about like what you think it looks like, and they didn't get that right either. This isn't an HD version. To me, this isn't an HD version of what those games looked like.
It feels like a cartoon version. Like the immediate thing that I noticed, because I booted up 3 and then I think I told you I moved on to Vice City and started playing that. But your character was like, what, half the size he is in the original game, and his legs bow out, and they're twice as big. And
yeah, there's some jarring things between the games that.
Yeah, he's like half the size, and he walks like bow-legged in a weird way. Yeah. And I was like, this doesn't seem right. So yeah, I looked up a video of what it used to look like, and I was like, how do you put that out? And then, like, you're talking about, them saying, like, oh, this was our way of preserving the game. But it's not even the original game. It looks way worse than the original game. And it's just, like, I'm
and they said that
running
they
into
the wireframes and stuff. But, like, maybe that's the case when you bring the wireframes over to an HD. Like, it just looks that way. But, man, you got to fix it then.
Yeah.
You got to fix it.
It seems like they had a project in mind, got started on it, realized it wasn't going to come out how they wanted, and then rather than sink more time and money into it, just, like you said, ran it as or
at the very
algorithm.
least that they had or at the very least they had the deadline that they had to stick to, because I mean they definitely released this game when pretty much when they planned to. It seems like it. They announced this game on the 20th anniversary of the release of GTA 3, and maybe they were planning on releasing it on that 20th anniversary, but so it was out a few months afterwards, that announcement. So
another game that should have been delayed but wasn't, and
exactly
starts off as a critical failure. Like, if they go back in and rework this from the ground up, like, obviously you could have a beautiful remaster of GTA 3. They're doing them left and right. I'm really excited for the remaster. There's I think a remake. Wait, what is the literal definition between the two? Is a remake just like starting from scratch completely with none of the previous assets? Because that's what they're doing for Dead Space.
Yeah, exactly. It's a remake is like taking the idea of it and we're kind of rebooting it, kind of like a Spider-Man. Which we've in our lifetimes we've had like 5 iterations of Spider-Man. So each one of those is a remake of the idea of Spider-Man, and a remaster is supposed to be taking the exact same files and polishing them. Even if it isn't a new engine. So they've called this, what do they call it? Definitive Edition. And Fredo pointed out in chat that what I caught was, for some reason, CJ's character model just starts chewing. He's just standing there as his mouth is just kind of flapping around. And so I zoom in real tight on it to show his mouth just sort of flapping around. What you say? Is it weird that Big Smoke model is so detailed, but CJ's is horrendous? Yeah, and Fredo, that may have to do with like the flexibility of the model when you start putting on weight, that it needs to be able to do that. I don't know. I did get CJ as fat as possible, which is, I think, a rite to passage to playing San Andreas. You eat as much food as you can until you throw up, and then you wait the next day and then you eat some more food to pack the weight on. I like how it changes. You eat the food and then you stay exactly the same until you leave the kitchen or leave the restaurant, and then you're big. As soon as you step outside, your character model changes to be a big boy. Yeah, I was like I said, I was surprised. Vice City, I had memories of it being just kind of not interesting, but they expanded the world so much in Vice City. And San Andreas, really, they pushed the limits with San Andreas about what they could possibly do with this engine. They added so many things. Flying was added in Vice City, but the size of the map in San Andreas and the RPG elements that they added, which were like changes to your character, individual changes to your character's what he was wearing, tattoos, his fatness, his physique. Like you could work out at the gym and your character would get more ripped, and your stamina levels. So that was the first one to introduce kind of those RPG style elements. Oh yeah, smoke ordering Fredo at the drive-thru.
Okay, and that I was so that also happens in the very beginning. So I've now seen that scene recently 3 to 4 times, and it's really not that big of an order.
Okay, he orders like 5
meals. because it's for him and all the boys in the car. It's for him.
No, they all order their own stuff.
Yes, but Big Smoke is placing the order. So they all tell them what.
Oh,
yes,
really?
and I think it's a common misunderstanding.
Oh, wow. Smoke's been getting the
Now,
raw
now
deal.
hold on.
He's
Now
not,
he
he's not that big
he
of a
still
boy.
does order, I believe, 3 meals for himself, but it's not the
Right.
6 that everyone thinks it is.
Fredo calls BS.
Fredo, I just fucking just Google it. You son of a bitch. All right.
I'm playing the San Andreas scene right now, which is the pa rapa of the mini games where you bounce in your car to earn the respect of the essays.
Yeah. Who become your
This game
best
definitely-
essays?
The best essays.
They really help you out more than the Grove Street.
The best days.
Grove Street. They're the Grove Street gang.
Or the Grove Street.
Is that what you were trying
Is
to
that
say?
what they called?
Grove Street family. GTA 3, that is the one that focuses on Liberty City. It is the first in the 3D universe and the most groundbreaking, at least as far as sandbox games go. It kind of sets the groundwork for the rest of them. You play as Claude, although he's never named in that game. You're running around doing tasks for some very typical like Goodfellas kind of gangsters. You change affiliations a couple times of who you're doing jobs for. Lots of betrayals, ransoms, kidnappings. It's chasing that kind of Sopranos feel with there's drug kingpins and money laundering and trophy wives and cheating, and the plot, in my opinion, doesn't make a splash to me. The story is the achievement of creating this open world with AI, these wandering around civilians, the physics of the driving and the chaos that you're allowed to explore, which I will make a note in here that they were very careful to carry over the exact physics code from the original games into the Unreal Engine. And I agree that they have done that as far as like when you get into a car, hit top speed and drive into another car. Given there are occasionally bugs, like you will transport into the netherworld, but when it works as it is intended to, and like your car skidding around the ground and stuff, that is how the original games felt in my memory, at least. Like I went to some of the ramps that I spent, God, probably hundreds of hours on jumping just to like see the slow-mo effect of your car flying through the air while the cops follow you. Like they feel exactly the same. And he said in an interview, Rich Rosado did that, like, I challenge anyone who says it doesn't feel the same, that like we brought the exact code over so it is the exact same. I agree with that. It does feel,
So
it
they did
retains
their
the physics
job.
feel of the original GTA
It was
trilogy.
just the graphics department
Yeah.
that messed up.
Yeah, GTA Vice City came out a year later, and like I said, just 12 months after this, which is kind of shocking to me, but it gave a much larger map. It added motorcycle riding. It's very Scarface vibes. It's drug deals. You can change outfits, like the entire outfit at once. It got much more offensive with its, at least that's what Wikipedia says, with its depictions of racial groups. You're playing as, first of all, you can be offensive to Italians. Everyone says you can't, but just listen to what Jared Leto said about playing in that Gucci movie, and then you'll realize that you can be offensive to Italians.
What did he say?
So he said to get into the role, he was like snorting marinara sauce or something. He was
Wow.
joking, but it still feels offensive.
Yeah, a little
Fucking
bit.
Italian he was. Oh.
So Chris Pratt voicing Mario, you can be offensive to Italians. All right, so you are playing as Tommy Vercetti, who is voiced by Ray Liotta. Tom Sizemore voices your boss. Luis Guzman voices a character that you look at and you're like, yeah, Luis Guzman voices that character. The introduction of most of the, there's one scene.
It's in the very beginning too.
Vice City.
A lot of the classic scenes are actually the very
boat.
beginning of the games, which I forgot. Like when I was playing it, I was like, oh my, I'm like, this happens in the beginning, like, and it's like, that's why everyone remembers it.
Yeah, so this is a scene where you introduce everyone on the yacht in the beginning of the mission, the party, where you arrive at the yacht and you're introduced to a few people. First, there's this waitress who walks by who. She gives you this look, like you do this little encounter, like, oh, she's
you're gonna
a looker,
fuck that
but
waitress.
She looks horrendous. And these characters that walk up, I don't even have the words to describe them. I feel it's like everything that happens in the Unreal Engine has a certain look to it. They look like Fortnite characters, or they look like any number of bad games that we've done on the Unreal Engine, like Road Rage was on Unreal Engine. They just have this look to them that looks like, oh, it could be a mobile game, you know?
He kind of looks like the Hello Neighbor guy.
Yes, yeah, they do look like the Hello Neighbor. Yeah. Perfect. That's exactly what I was thinking of.
There's Mercedes, and you figure they could have put a little more time into her, you know?
Yeah, it's like a main character, you know? And so anyway, he's going to introduce us around, and here's one of the most horrific character models I've ever seen in my life. The porn actress, I'm guessing.
Guessing?
Oh boy. Oh
Now,
boy.
is her bikini top glitching through her skin when you looked at it? Because
Parts of it
yeah,
are.
it did when I was played it, and I was like her bikini's glitching through the skin.
Yeah, and the Rockstar character here, the band member from Love Fist, I think is the band's name. He's got the trapezoidal nipples. Again, I think the answer to most of our questions is that they ran it through an AI that upscaled the textures, and that's why things look like
And
they
did
do.
nothing else.
And they
never went
they
over
said
it.
that they like manually manipulated things afterwards, but maybe with like a couple of the main characters. And there's Louise Guzman. This character model.
Yeah.
It's horrific, and I've got a side-by-side later that we'll take a peek at. Fredo in chat asked about the hot coffee mod. So let me jump to the story of the launch. The existence of this game was first reported in August of 2021, a couple of months ago. They formally announced in October, along with the 20th anniversary of GTA 3's original release, that they would be releasing a trilogy with across-the-board upgrades while maintaining the classic look and feel of the original. The videos and screenshots they released were praised for using a light touch to update the games. The existing versions of these games were then delisted from digital retailers on October 13th, which drew criticism for many reasons. Then on Thursday, November 11th, 2021, Grand Theft Auto: The Trilogy - the Definitive Edition was released. The game was accidentally unlocked 24 hours early on the PlayStation Store for Australia and New Zealand players, and then the digital listing was entirely removed from PlayStation Store to resolve that issue. Then when the game was released, the Rockstar game launcher went offline for 28 hours for maintenance, meaning you could not buy or play it on Windows. When it did come back online, they said that they had removed unintentionally included files, and what they appear to be referring to, and this is all I'm repeating from some reporting from, let's see, where is this from? VideoGameChronicle.com. What it was that as soon as it was released, people started reverse engineering the game, checking through the files, and on PC, when it was originally released, what did they find? That the original infamous Hot Coffee files were apparently still there. Hot Coffee, if you're unaware of it, was a mini game that was in the code of the original San Andreas game. It wasn't in the final game. There legitimately was no way to access it and actually play it without like modifying the game, but some people made a mod to activate it, and it was a sex mini game that ended up costing Take-Two Publishing more than $20 million in settlement legal costs. And that is the reason that if you ever tried to trade in San Andreas, which I did, to a GameStop, they were legally unable to purchase it back from you because it was rated adults only and they could not sell it. So anyway, this definitive edition releases, people are digging into the files and they find that original coding, which like was the source of everything that got them in trouble, and they re-released it again along with some of the licensed music which they were supposed to have removed, because as Frank mentioned earlier, like the 2014 release of these games on Steam had a lot of the music removed, and they were supposed to remove all of it, and for some reason they released it with all of the unlicensed music in it again. Furthermore, the Nintendo Switch version apparently is what people are calling the holy grail for people who mod games. It apparently included like the entire source code for the trilogy, like the internal tools, text sources. If it was an online game, it would be really bad because it'd be easy to hack it and stuff, but as it is, it just seems like it's going to be very easy for people to create mods for this game. So like I said, 3 days afterwards it was available again on November 14th. So since these games have DRM and require you to be online, if you bought this game on day one, you would have been unable to play it for 3 days because it was offline and they weren't allowing you online with it. And a day or two later, modders for this game fixed what Kotaku called the ugly ass rain. I don't know if you guys experienced the rain in this game. And then clips continued to roll out of people finding bizarre character models and glitches, including the return of an old glitch from GTA 3 where you could make your car turn giant by wiggling it around. And on November 19th, they put in an official statement saying that it was not up to their standards and that they would be improving it through patches. Said that they would be adding GTA 3, Vice City, and San Andreas to the Rockstar store as a bundle that you could download for free for 6 months if you had purchased the definitive edition. So after they had delisted everything, they're essentially letting anyone who bought the definitive edition download and keep, in perpetuity those licenses for the games. So, and in the meantime, they have delayed the physical launch of this game that we're looking at. They have, it was supposed to be pre-Christmas, and now it looks like it's early 2022. Yeah, that is the story of the launch of this game. Botched, to say the least. I got distracted when I said Luis Guzman. Furthermore, the voices in Vice City. Burt Reynolds voices a Texas real estate guy somewhere in there. They added planes for the first time. They added boats. The plot is that gangsters in Liberty City want to move into the market of Vice City, which is Miami, and you do a drug deal, it kind of goes wrong, and most of the game is about figuring out who betrayed you, how they found out about a deal going down, and uncovering the network of gangs and kingpins in the area. You're in a fish out of water situation. You're new to the city, and you're working your way up in the ranks to get respect. So that is the story of Vice City. And you spent the most time in Vice City, right?
Yeah.
Right, Hunter? Anything else to add to the world?
Not really the world. I found the story pretty boring so far. So, again, I thought I had played this one, but I guess not. I don't know. I'm just I'm driving around now. I also haven't been really paying attention to the story, to be honest. So it's not. It's not gripping me, but. It's just I just keep noticing little things like characters get in and out of cars, like the animation is sped up and their arms kind of flail around.
After playing all three of these games, Vice City does a weird thing, and this was true in the original versions of the game too, that you move a lot faster in Vice City, like unnaturally fast. When you jump, it feels like you lunge forward, and any movements, especially like getting knocked off a bike or something, you go about 100% further than you ought to. That was not a problem in 3 and in San Andreas, but for some reason in Vice City and in Miami, things just move faster.
Was that in the original as well,
it's the
or
cocaine.
is that just in the...
I think so. That's my memory of it, yeah. San Andreas, I don't think it can be underestimated how much of a leap this game took. Like, they took 2 years between Vice City and this one, and it just, how many things they added as far as gameplay goes. It introduced bikes, first of all, but it added a lot of RPG elements, like you can pump iron and improve your stamina. You can eat 9 pizzas before throwing up and then get fat, and it'll slowly burn off if you're not, like, eating food regularly in the game. They added swimming, finally. You didn't drown in water. They added, a much better climbing system. You can climb up walls, and you start to get into things that were really pushing the limits of, in my opinion, what was good and what worked on the engine, like burglary missions. Burglary missions are an example of the engine is not built for this, but you just keep insisting on us doing these things. And in my opinion, I think they keep doing that. They did that with 4 and 5 as well. It's like, these things don't, your game isn't meant to do stealth modes. Why are you trying to do it? But they always do that in Grand Theft Auto, and people seem to enjoy it. So whatever, it's my little beef. But you can modify cars. You can put different pieces like on the cars at a time. You can color them differently. You can get tattoos, barbershops. But the map was so big in this one that they finally added waypoints, which I will point out now, none of the 3D Universe games had GPS. Like, it was only added in GTA 4 and onward. And now in the definitive editions, they do have it. In the original Liberty City GTA 3, like, it does give you a navigation when you're on your way to a mission. It'll tell you what roads to take before. And as Rich Rosato said in an interview, they shipped the games with a map for a reason, that you were supposed to look at it as you're doing your missions, or you'd have to press pause and pull up the map and just kind of figure that, like, okay, I'm gonna make a left here, and then on the big road I'm gonna make a right. And I remember that being a part of playing those early games, is that, like, looking at the map or trying to remember where you were going, using the pause screen map, which I guess in a way Grand Theft Auto is like an edutainment game, like Mario was missing, right? It's teaching you to read maps. So and in San Andreas, the voice actors they had continued to expand. They had Clifton Powell, David Cross, Peter Fonda, James Woods, Ice-T, Samuel L., of course, as Officer Tenpenny. They had Chris Penn and Charlie Murphy. And I didn't mention the plot. So you are CJ from the Grove Street family gang in San Andreas. You've moved back to town after your moms died. They always say your moms, my moms.
She didn't just die, Chris. She was murdered.
My moms. Yeah, it was a drive-by, and there's a plot to uncover. The local corrupt PD is hassling you. You're trying to bring your gang back on top. You're making lots of friends with other gangs, wiping out other gangs. PD's got you under their thumb. Lots of betrayal, and it's a plot that actually I was engaged in following up the next missions with. I can't say that about the other games as I was doing these playthroughs. I didn't give a shit what happened to Claude or Tommy.
Wow, you didn't care about Tommy Vercetti? You are Italian-phobic, right?
Nah, I don't care about him at all. I'm so over this. I'm about to just load up San Andreas.
Honestly, with the gameplay mechanics and everything else, like I said, did they need to port GTA 3? It's questionable. San Andreas, like there's a lot going on there, but the other two games definitely not as much. The takeaway that I had from Vice City, and the biggest moments for that, I don't know if you're playing with sound right now, is the
soundtrack fucking slaps.
Is fire. Oh my god, I have no idea how they got the licensing for these songs.
Well, because this is when video games really weren't popping off still. Now I'm curious, Chris, do you have a list of the songs that they had to take out?
I have that exact list. Yeah. So
because I've heard a lot of because I used to play this game all the time, and so I basically knew so many of the songs.
This is a list that I got from 4chan, so obviously it's extremely reputable. But these are all the songs that weren't licensed for the definitive edition. Yeah, Hall & Oates, Out of Touch, Michael Jackson, Billie Jean, Brannigan, Self Control, Go West, Call Me, Michael Jackson, Wanna Be Starting Something, The Cult, She Sells Me Sanctuary, Ozzy Osbourne, Bark at the Moon, Iron Maiden, 2 Minutes to Midnight, Anthrax, Foreign, Cutting Crew, I Just Died in Your Arms, Toto, Africa, Frankie Goes to Bollywood, Blondie, Atomic, 99 Luftballons, I Ran So Far Away. These are bangers, all right?
So they did. So those are the ones that are cut from the game.
All of those were cut from the game. Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah. Yeah, and honestly, the reason I brought that up is because that's the main thing that Vice City has going for it, in my opinion. Yes, the gameplay is better than GTA 3, but you jump in your car, you're going to a mission to cut some guy up with a chainsaw, and you're listening to Bark at the Moon at the same. You hop in the car and Bark at the Moon's playing. It's a vibe, man. It works. I have no idea how they got the licensing. Maybe like you said, 2002 or 2003, it wasn't a big deal for whatever record company to license it out. Which is weird too, because GTA 3 generated a lot of controversy. So is Geffen Records going to be yeah, we'll let you use our song for a very minimal price? In the 2014 versions, the Steam versions that were out, a lot of these songs were removed as well. So some people criticized them for doing a definitive edition at all, because I guess it's a known thing that when you re-release a game, because it being a different property, that you don't automatically get those licensed songs anymore. But for whatever reason, insurmountable amount to get the
it depends on how the contract's written.
Yeah,
because there was a thing with Alan Wake where they changed the digital version after a certain amount of time, I believe, because of licensing reasons. So even though they were still the same, I believe they had to change it. But I don't know if that was just how the contract was written. I'm not sure if that's a standard procedure.
Yeah, because the definitive edition has had the launch that it's had. Like I said, they let anyone who bought it download those games. So it's not like it's impossible for them to give out licenses to those games anymore. They can. It's just maybe they're paying at a rate that they don't want to anymore. Yeah, whatever the reasoning is. That But this version, it launches with much less songs, and I have the list here for the San Andreas soundtrack too, and there's about 30 songs on here that are removed as well. Tom Petty, Running Down a Dream, Leonard Skinner, Freebird. Some of these songs are how did they get the licenses to play this in these games in the first place? But yeah, crazy stuff. You might have noticed while launching the game, it had another name next to Rockstar that was not Rockstar. So let's talk publishers and developers. It is published by Rockstar. Definitive Edition was developed, though, by Grove Street Games, which you hear that and you may initially think that this is a subsidiary of Rockstar, like an in-house team that kind of separated to do this, because the gang that you're part of, as we said, in San Andreas is called the Grove Street Families. But no, actually no relation at all. Grove Street Games is actually a Gainesville, Florida-based company, and the neighborhood that they are in is called Grove Street. So they renamed themselves Grove Street Games. And maybe they picked that name because they wanted to work with Rockstar or were already working with Rockstar. I don't know. They just did recently change it, and the previous name was War Drum Studios. Under that name, War Drum Studios, they have ported the 2009 Ghostbusters game to the PS2. They did some programming on Red Orchestra 2. They handled the port to the 10th anniversary of GTA 3 onto mobile, as well as Max Payne, Vice City, San Andreas, Chinatown Wars, Ark Survival, all of these ports to mobile. So yes, they've worked with Rockstar several times. They ported this Trilogy to mobile previously. When you look at like the forums of people talking about the definitive edition, a lot of them are saying like, oh, what went wrong was Rockstar shouldn't have trusted this team with such a beloved game, always botches things. But they have ported, like I said, several of the games like Max Payne and Chinatown Wars. They're well-reviewed games that run well, that are well-rated. And so San Andreas apparently is the only one that has really bad reviews. And another one of the things that people say is like they cite that Grove Street Games only has 21 employees at Grove Street, and Rockstar has a team of more than 4,000 devs. Counterpoint, like maybe that's how many they have listed on their website, like their developer website, but they were definitely working alongside Rockstar North, and that 4,000 devs number like surely includes contractors, just like Grove Street may. And it apparently was a team of 23 people who made the original GTA 3. So like this is not developing an entire game of what they were doing. They had 2 years to port a game. They weren't supposed to be creating an entirely new game. So anyway, we were talking before about like their development process, and they talked in one of the articles with Rich Rosato about how they studied the games for each of their style. Like in Vice City, it feels like a flamingo threw up, so they tried to emulate that 1980s Miami style. And San Andreas, it has a lot of orange skies, but it's a beat up rundown city, so they tried to emulate that. He also talked about how they fixed some things that they couldn't have done before, like the sky, how the moon and sun move, which is one of those things that's in the background. Like if you look up at night, like, yeah, there's a moon texture there, and I guess there wasn't before. That's good for you, I guess. It's one of those things that just blends into the background and you're not going to notice.
I think before it was just literally like a picture of them. It was just like a...
Yeah.
It's still...
Yeah, and now it's like, he made a point to talk about how like the celestial bodies work in the game. And it's like, yeah, that's great. I'm not sure that you should have focused on it that much, but I mean, you got the engine, and the engines usually do that kind of thing. So sure, all right, just slap it on there. And that's an easy win, I guess. But that's a background thing that people aren't going to notice. And maybe that is part of the problem with ports, is that, you know, you bring it into HD and you have all these expectations of what are there, and when they meet those expectations, they just blend in and you don't notice them. But all these things that they screwed up are just so glaring. But the lighting was a main part of the problems that they had. These engines obviously run off more realistic lighting, that every source of lighting has a source, and that was not always the case. It wasn't that light was being cast from like the sky, a position in the sky, the sun, and there weren't shadows being rendered for the real time of the day. So that was a real problem they had to wrestle with. And it came down to adding a lot of stuff. Like you may notice a lot of lamp posts in places that there weren't before, because each light source had to be coming from somewhere. So Rich Rosato also said in the interview that we played with various remakes and remasters where you pick up the controller and immediately something feels off. He said one big tenet that we had was to maintain as much of the original art style and feel as humanly possible. So we essentially lifted the physics game code and ported that into the Unreal verbatim. I mentioned before that they had the master game files for the original games, and that's true. They worked with Rockstar North, but it wasn't always the case that they existed, because in another interview with thegamer.com, Rich Rosato said that when it came to redoing these games, it presented an archival challenge. He said back in the 90s and early 2000s, they weren't as fastidious about backing everything up. He said that he's been with the company since the late 90s, and you'd make a game, you'd print it on the media, and you'd ship it, and that's kind of it. There was never thoughts about them revisiting it. So when they went back and they did this, they were looking for like the original sources of audio for this game. Some of the stuff, all they had was the compressed versions of the audio. Some things...
And you can tell.
Oh, you can tell. Yeah, the same things for the source textures and models. So my analogy is like there may have been a graphic designer back in the day who designed San Andreas's CJ character with in a model with like 20,000 pixels. This is just arbitrary number, but the game only renders with 500 or 500 polygons. So they render it with the 500 polygons for what they need, and that other version, the original source version that it was kind of compressed from, like it doesn't exist anymore. Like this 500 polygon version, it's all they have. So what are they going to do? Do they like remake it from scratch, or do they use the AI to try and scale it up? And that's what they did. He spoke to some of the character redesigns, saying when it came to redesigning the characters, Rosato says the team consulted Rockstar North, including some of the original artists. Of all the upgraded visual elements in these new versions, the character models are perhaps the most striking and immediately different. It's tough, says Rosato. You're worried what people will think. You can clean up a car and add more geometry and it'll look like it did before. It's just more current. But the characters were much more difficult and involved a lot more iteration to make sure we were all comfortable with them. Which again, I think we're all on the same page of, I don't think they spent that much time making sure everyone was comfortable with them.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it.
I'm going to jump to another screenshot so you hit the checkpoint at the end of the bridge and all the cars just, I don't know. Again, I don't know if it was like this in the original, but they just do a wild pile up on the end where they're all just slamming into each other and blowing up.
Yes, I mean, that is a thing, like certain thing, like there's also like sometimes at the end of missions, if it's like transitioning, you going back into free world, Yeah. Like sometimes weird shit will just happen where you'll hit someone with the car or someone will kind of glitch into you.
Let's have a little conversation here about a trend that's definitely been going on. The releasing of unfinished games. We've had a lot of like seemingly really bad game launches recently, and I can only speculate like as the cause of that. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts, but I thought I'd name a few in recent memory, starting with Fallout 76 was 3 years ago now, and that was a pretty bad launch. It has a player base, but it is rough. I think, again, expectations that really did that game in about what people wanted it to be.
But with that one, was it that it had a bad launch because it wasn't ready or anything? It wasn't fine-tuned? Or did they just, like, intend to make that game, and it just didn't fly? People didn't care for it because there was, like, nothing in it. It was like, it was almost too pure a survival game.
And they didn't want that out of a Fallout series game. And the thing is that when people already have those already are primed that way, right? They're going to be looking for all those glitches. So then you're going to start seeing those Giphy clips of super bugs happening in the games. That would happen in like even polished games, right? In Fallout 4, there were bugs like that, I'm sure. So yeah,
in every Fallout game.
Yeah, they exist. Just it didn't have the bandwagoning
of
Bethesda piling onto it. Yeah. And then in 2020, we had Warcraft 3 Reforged, as well as Cyberpunk, and a game called Balan Wonderland, which was a highly anticipated game that we may do at some point from Sega developers and Square Enix that really tanked in 2021. And currently, in kind of an ongoing crisis, we have Battlefield 2042, which for a while at least had the worst ever user score on Metacritic. Also, I mentioned at the beginning, Halo fans are piling onto the battle progression system, and Call of Duty Vanguard, which launched recently, had a pretty rough start as well. I've watched people play that game, and man, they just seem to ignore the glitches that are ongoing. I appreciate the fact that it's on like a new engine and it looks beautiful, but good God, some of the glitches are nightmare fuel. Yeah, and then on top of that, we've got GTA 3 : the Trilogy - Definitive Edition. So yeah, it feels like we're just we've got a lot going on at the moment as far as bad games launching. I don't know.
It feels like they just put it out and they're like, if it sells enough to warrant us actually fixing it, we will. If not,
I agree. And maybe I'm too lenient in that case, because I see Battlefield 2042 and I didn't buy it. I played the beta and was discouraged from buying it. But at the same time, I'm like not that upset with them about it, because I feel like I know they'll support it. Like that is their current energy invested current program, and that's I feel like that's kind of the state of games, that like EA's got their Battlefield, Activision's got their Call of Duty, and they're going to support it, and they're going to fix the things to make sure that people keep playing it. So like I'm not that beat up that Battlefield is super buggy. It's on a new engine. If without people raging against Definitive Edition and us doing a podcast because we're making a huge splash, like maybe they wouldn't fix all the bugs in it, because like I said, they've committed to fixing the issues. So I don't know, these are AAA developers putting out crap, and I feel like I maybe have too much faith in them that they are going to fix these things. But that's not been the case with like Warcraft Reforged, right? Or Cyberpunk has been slow going. It's, in my opinion, like maybe they just slap an early access on this and everyone would be okay with it. But for some reason, like with their stakeholders, whatever, they've got to say like this game officially released on this date. That's a need that they have. And because of it, fans are going crazy over it. I feel like all you had to do was slap an early access on it. Everyone would be happy.
That's kind of what it feels like.
Yeah.
But then it's just another early access game, whether it's going to be finished or not.
Yeah. Does it ever get abandoned? You'd have to have faith in the studio to do it, right? And so one of the main things that changes the feel of this game is the draw distance. It was definitely a fact of San Andreas, Vice City, and GTA 3 that the systems were limited, that they could not render a car more than a couple hundred feet in front of you, right? That's not the case anymore. With these engines and the capabilities of our systems, you are able to do that. But what that means is that you can stand on the highest point in GTA 3 and Vice City and San Andreas, and you can literally see the other end of the map. What a lot of people have said is that it makes the world feel small, and I agree with that. It's not even realistic that you could see that far. People have described San Andreas as having like a green tint, like you're looking through a green beer bottle through most of it. On one hand, that gives it that old, dated, noisy feel, but on the other hand, it's going to make it feel more realistic in its time as well. Now you've got this HD polished version of it, and it feels like it's the world exposed, in my opinion.
I don't mind it.
Frank, the youngest of us.
Yeah. On 90s,
How do you feel
baby.
about the blood puddles, by the way? I just saw a blood puddle appear.
Yeah, that was something that was there before.
Yeah, the blood puddles are there, but they look like they were made out of rubber.
Yeah, well, you know. I honestly, after playing through, because I really just played San Andreas, and then right before we started, I played Vice City, and then while we were talking on the podcast, I played Vice City. To me, it does really feel like how the original felt. At least my memory of it, you know?
Yeah.
So I want to give them kudos for that. I didn't try any cheat codes because I don't have the controller.
Yeah, so some of the, you can punch in the cheat codes. I only know the ones for 3. They're text cheat codes. You just type them in now.
Oh, really?
But they actually removed a lot of the cheat code. Well, some of the cheat codes because they didn't play well with the engine, they said. But like I did spawn the tank in GTA 3.
It's a great tank.
When you guys in San
caused a
Andreas.
lot of havoc in that tank.
And I need some help is full health, full armor, and cash. The quad bike is 4-wheel fun. The quad bike is the glitch that everyone, or the view that everyone has posted of the reverse cam while you're in the car, and it just looks goofy as hell. Again, that was in the original version of the game, backing up what Frank said. Like, it looked dumb as hell in the original game, and it looks dumb as hell in this game. In the interview, they did talk about using AI to upscale textures, as we talked about. If I can make a kind of a simple, technical, maybe wrong explanation of it, they needed to improve the character models. They had this low res grainy thing, and they ran it through essentially a Snapchat filter, and they ported it into the game. And maybe they tweaked the filter a bit after that to see like, oh, this character model looks off, so we'll manually adjust that one. But some of them are going to be more successful than others, and it feels like they didn't do a whole lot of quality assurance testing here. Some like that work that they're in the background, like you just don't take a second glance at. Then others that get a lot of screen time, it seems like they should have really worked on, end up getting screenshotted and just ridiculed to no end on Reddit. So that's kind of what's happened with the port of this game.
But you know what? Who cares what people on Reddit say? That's what I say.
Yeah. I did find a very neat list here. This is on envisioncommunity.co.uk. It is the top 20 worst remakes remastered. And what they've done is they put a table together where they looked at the Metacritic score of the original release versus the Metacritic score of the remastered release, and come up with a list of the best and worst, like the biggest changes in the Metacritic score. So on their list, they have Silent Hill, which was the Silent Hill HD collection, was released on PS3 and Xbox 360, which I question whether it was needed because it was a port from PS2 to PS3, and they lost 20 points in their Metacritic score. Then we had Resident Evil 4, which was GameCube to Windows, and Resident Evil regular. These are getting worse as we continue. So Return to Castle Wolfenstein, Oddworld, Abe's Exodus, Modern Warfare 2, which was the recent one, right? Yeah, the 2020 remake. Batman Arkham City was remastered into Batman Return to Arkham on PS4, and that got a -23. Sonic Adventure 2, GoldenEye 007. I forgot about GoldenEye 007 Reloaded. Got a negative 24. Honestly, like, I'm going to pause there for a second. I just feel like that's the case with GoldenEye or with GTA 3. If you port that into anything, even like without bugs, people are going to realize like this is not good. Like it doesn't stand up to today's standards. Yeah, I think a perfect port of GTA 3 it certainly wouldn't get the 95 or 96, whatever Metacritic score it got before. In the 10th spot or the 11th spot, they've got Devil May Cry 3, Dante's Awakening, then Dead Rising, then Ape Escape, then Tony Hawk Pro Skater. Parappa the Rapper lost 31 points in its remaster. And they actually listed these separate, I guess. Warcraft 3 Reign of Chaos into Warcraft 3 Reforged lost 33 points. And the worst remaster was Devil May Cry to the Devil May Cry HD collection, which was negative 34 points. Yeah. And I read all the reviews about it, and honestly, it wasn't that bad. It was just that like it didn't add anything new, which I don't feel like maybe, I don't know. I don't think
it's a remaster that doesn't have... So you know what? Yeah. Okay, here's the thing about the original Devil May Cry, because I was really big into 3, right?
Yeah.
And I loved it. And at some point, I bought 2 and 1, and they just look horrific. Yeah. They don't play as well. It just 3 was the best one.
Yeah.
And I got the other 2 afterwards, and I was like, why? Like these are I didn't beat any of them. Yeah, it was just like 1 and 2. It's just like, oh no, these aren't good.
Yeah,
so I imagine a remaster of it would make it a little more palatable, but
yeah, I feel the same way with GTA 3 and Vice City leading up to San Andreas. San Andreas is just the best version of like this iteration of the game. They're all on the same engine. They just have pushed the engine to the absolute max on this, and except with Vice City, it just has, like we said, a banger soundtrack. and
like Vice City has the visuals, all right.
You like the visuals, the neon, yeah.
Neon's everything's neon. It's Miami, baby. You know what I'm saying?
It's Miami.
Like it's just
they I don't know if you ever found it, but they have the recreated Scarface chainsaw scene somewhere in the city. I remember hunting that down, being in like 8th grade or something like that. There's a bathroom that a body part's dismembered in, and there's a chainsaw there.
Oh,
blood all over the walls. Yeah, I'll play some Vice City in the background here.
It does seem like they made Tommy Vercetti fatter.
Yeah, some people have criticized him for looking like a bloated Ken doll now, which I can't argue with.
He looks like Michael from 5.
Oh wow. Yeah, I guess he does. Here's a screenshot of how muscular you look in the definitive edition versus the original. Now, can you guess which one's the definitive? It's the less jaggedy one.
The one on the right.
No, the one on the left is the definitive edition, the newer one. The one where you look just like a complete beefcake, and you look just shredded on the right. And it's a lot more jagged, like there's no anti-aliasing.
And the tiny head.
Yeah.
What happened to all the rest of his tattoos and his hat?
What I put as a note was that like in importing games, apparently necks are hard. Like it's just what happened to all the necks? Also, here, this is something from Twitter here. This is great stuff for podcast content, right? Just looking at pictures. Fingernails are hard. Yeah, these fingernails. Here's some more fingernails. What the fuck happened? It looks like they pasted them on. It's definitely cartoonish.
Wait, that's what you're taking away from that?
The issue with that guy is not his fingernails. Yeah. The issue with that guy is that he looks like Patrick Star.
Rain, I cannot emphasize enough how bad Rain looks in the original. Apparently they have patched it, but Rain looks like it belongs in Sin City or something. It is hard white lines that will completely obscure your building. And they're showing in a video that I'm playing right now, in a plane, if you ascend or descend faster than the rain is falling, you can make the rain stand still, and you're just looking at hard white lines in the sky, and it looks like the rain is reversing. It's one of the worst implementations of rain I've ever seen. Also, if you stare at the ground while it's raining, you can see like the grid patterns, like the textile grid patterns of the rain hitting the ground as a texture. That looks very bad. But like when they had members of Rockstar like concurrently working with him while they did this, it's weird that they gave it the stamp of approval. One of the things they removed, here's Claude from GTA 3 flicking off cars as he stood in front of him, which was a kind of signature thing that happened throughout the game, I remember, but now he just doesn't do it. They removed the animation of him flicking off cars that were trying to drive through him. Don't know why.
Because it's rude.
Yeah.
And it'll get you run over.
Sometimes it happened, yeah. Sometimes they would just drive right through you. Since the release of this game on November 11th, they have pushed out a few patches since, obviously the first of which removing licensed files that they were not supposed to include in the game. Rockstar themselves, not Grove Street Games, Rockstar themselves is committed to fixing the issues. I don't know how that contract works, whether Grove Street Games is like completely done, hands off the game now, whether they're not touching it again, like they delivered their final project and their contract is fulfilled, or they are actually the one doing patches. The way that some people on Reddit are talking about it seems to be giving Rockstar a lot of leniency, saying like, wow, Grove Street Games really fucked this up, and now Rockstar is doing right by their customers and fixing all these issues themselves. I don't know if that's the case, whether Grove Street is doing them or Rockstar, but there's rumors from some tweets that I saw from the dev world that Rockstar is allocating a lot of resources to clean this mess up, but they have officially in their letter committed to getting it right, and like the whole purpose of them remastering these was to keep it compatible for the future. So there is the expectation that they would get it to a state in which it is acceptable, and that this is the version that people buy through for the next generation.
Even if it's Grove Street's problem, like it still went through Rockstar to get released.
Yeah, they approved it.
So
they could have said it's not ready at any time.
I don't think I'm giving anybody any real leniency here.
No passes.
Like,
gotcha.
There's no way, how many ever Rockstar employees are sitting in a room discussing the game, be like, yeah, it's ready to go. This is going to be perfect. People are going to love this.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, I'm willing to give some understanding that like they saw the original, like they came up with the formula to port this into Unreal and how bad it looked and how much better this version looks compared to that. I believe that is a huge improvement, but that doesn't mean that this itself is acceptable. Let's get into the scores. Let's talk scores for this GGN game. It does have a Metacritic rating less than a month later, and we are looking at the aggregate scores right now. How do you think that the critics received it? Frank, what do you think this game got? What's sitting for?
Critics are suckers. Even though I enjoy this game and I don't think it's that big of a deal. But I know all the internet little boys, they're all upset. But these are critics. I feel like a lot of people have been lampooning on this too, though. I'm gonna say 70.
And Hunter, what do you think? What do you think the critics gave it average out of 100?
I'll just go with 60. I think 55, 60. Because I agree that it feels like a GTA game. Like, the physics are there. The driving is there. The animations are still bad, but the weight is still there. And I think that's like that they kept. Its strong point is that that is the same. But like, just watching it, it feels like it looks like a different game. It looks like it would have a completely different story. Mods. Yeah, like I'm watching Claude now, and he's like a pretty boy now, versus that kind of gruff. He looks like an anime character.
Everyone commented that he looks a lot younger than he ought to. Same thing with Tommy.
But like Claude in GTA 3 Definitive or Hyphen the Trilogy, the Definitive, the movie
colon the Trilogy Hyphen
looks better somehow than CJ in San Andreas.
So you said 60, and you said 55 or 60. Actually, it is 55.
Hey.
That's exactly on the nose. And that moved up a little bit from when I originally started my notes. I think it was at a 54 or so when I originally looked. I have a couple of reviews here that we'll go over. Who wants to do an Australian accent?
Press start Australia. November 16th, 2021. 65. I'm a die-hard fan of the GTA series, but I'm of two minds about this up and down port to the Unreal 4 engine. There's a lot of words here that I never thought I would say in an Australian accent. I'm having trouble with them. But I'm of two minds about this up and down port to the Unreal 4 engine. The initial wow factor of the visual upgrade is undeniable, but the more you play it, the more cracks appear in that pretty veneer. Wow, this is a little like Eminem here. Some of those are legacy fissures that have not been repaired. Others are eyesore imperfections wrought by a new team of less than master craftspeople.
Frank, what you got?
This is from Screen Rant. 50. Yeah. Grand Theft Auto 3, Vice City, and San Andreas are some of the PlayStation 2's best games, and helped to both pioneer and define the open world genre. Grand Theft Auto: The Trilogy Definitive Edition does not provide the best way to experience these titles, nor should this be considered the definitive edition of the games included. The definitive edition is often prettier and slightly more modern in its controls and presentation, but missing features and poorly optimized content let down what could have been ideal remasters. Grand Theft Auto: The Trilogy Definitive Edition feels rushed, and after 20 years, that's disappointing.
That's disappointing.
Yeah, and actually hearing, I know I copied this review and read it already, but hearing them like call it like this is supposed to be the definitive editions of those games, and just like the single fact that it's missing all that licensed music, like how could you call it the definitive edition? That's not how I experienced the games originally, and I don't think that's how they ought to be experienced. Again, like I'm one to raise my pitchfork. It is a dusty pitchfork, but yeah, that grinds my gears. And one more from IGN. IGN gives it a 50. They say, there's no question that the 3 games in this GTA trilogy are all-time classics, but they've unfortunately been remastered with a ham hand instead of a love fist. A reference to Vice City. New features are slight and only partially implemented. Visuals are mixed. Performance is inconsistent at best. Some content is missing, and bugs and glitches abound. In its existing state, this collection of 3 classic GTA games is far from being considered definitive. It's defective, disappointing, and surprisingly disrespectful to both the legacy of the games themselves and their many legions of fans. All right, and on to the user scores. It is now sitting at a 0.9 user score as of recording this with 4,900 reviews. It looks like they actually removed about 600 negative reviews than when it was at 0.4. Here are a few Metacritic user scores.
This is from DMDev0. Rockstar, you spit on my childhood. Rename the company. The people who work there now are not worthy to represent this brand. Take Blizzard by the hand and go yourself.
Yeah, some harsh words.
Just very upset. You spit on his childhood.
Frank, what you got there?
This is from Paladin.
That's Paladin.
I'm sorry. Paladin. Call
I
of
can't
Rat.
help you there. Yeah, Call of Rat, sure.
Call of Rat. A 0. My disappointment is immeasurable, and my nostalgia feeling is ruined. Shame on Rockstar. Greedy bastards.
Mm-hmm. And one more review here from oh boy, I should have read this one. Movamampamo. He gives it a 0. He says, it is as if the game was ported to mobile, then back to console. AI did most of the visual upgrade work, and it was a bad idea. From typos to absurd character models, this feels nothing like the original, which have been removed from stores. The shooting has been completely redone for the worse. The weapon wheel is a mockery of the GTA 5 version. I am all for faithful reskins, leaving in the old glitches intact, but this version adds all kind of game-breaking things into the mix. It is the most disappointing thing that Rockstar has ever endorsed. Definitive is absolutely the wrong word. It is the mutated edition.
Ooh.
And that actually brought up a couple things that I forgot to add in. They did add the weapon wheel was not in the original games. You just cycled through the weapons.
Yeah, you just cycled, yeah.
Yeah, which was a pain in the ass. They do have the weapon wheel now. If you're playing mouse and keyboard, you can hold down tab and just select, and that works better along with navigation. Those are just sort of quality of life improvements that they've added. We've heard enough about other people's scores. What about our own scores? Us refined critics who were born in the trash, molded by it, didn't see a good game until we were men. We use our own score system here because we're sick. We need help. We enjoy games that are bad. At least some of us. Hunter got the award for giving out the most zeros, but we use our own score system, and
I don't enjoy doing this. I feel as though I'm forced to be here.
So we recognize, some of us do, that you can enjoy a game because it's bad, and you can also enjoy a game because it's good. A good game like GTA 5 gets a score like a 9, a 10, but a bad game that were equally enjoyable, it would get a -9. Games that aren't enjoyable because they aren't good or aren't bad enough for us to enjoy, or just they're in the valley. They're zeros. You don't want to touch them at all. So with that in mind, let's how do you feel like they handled the graphics? Because it definitely is like a style, right? I mentioned before it's kind of got a Frank, you said hello neighbor, which is a good way to describe the shape of the faces and the heads.
Honestly, I didn't mind it. Like,
Yeah.
do I think there's certain characters they should have put more time into? Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
You know?
you can glance at them for 1 second and tell that, yeah, like this is an abomination.
Like, overall, I mean, the original game didn't look great anyway. You know what I mean? It's one of those things where
Yeah.
it's like you put lipstick on a pig, regardless. And I think for what they did a pretty good job, and it was enjoyable. Now, actually, the one thing we didn't really talk about is the multiplayer in San Andreas.
Yeah, that was at least in my opinion, a pretty minor aspect of that game, but people did bring that up, that it is completely removed.
Yeah, and on the Steam version, if you go to 1.0, that you know that's the one where you can really do most of the mods work, you know? Because after that, like, you know, mods are really kind of hit or miss.
Sure.
Apparently you could on PC do multiplayer with that via mod.
Oh, really?
So even though that was something you could really only originally do just like on the PlayStation, but
Yeah.
I remember that was a lot of fun to be able to play 2 players Grand Theft Auto. You know, this before GTA 5 and online stuff. But so there was like, it's like, oh my God.
Yeah, and I read a little bit about that. Honestly, I don't even remember playing it. I'm sure I did at some point with someone, play the multiplayer. Maybe I invited Tom and he played it with someone else instead. But Hunter, any thoughts on the graphics, the style?
I dislike it. I think it's terrible. Again, I think the cars look okay, but
yeah,
if we're going by the fact that this is a definitive edition - it's not. Then
with the
at
hyphen
that point,
and the colon.
You've changed it way too much.
Yeah, it definitely has a different style than the original. I mean, like they said, I know you got to bring it into HD. You gotta add more polygons. You got to make the faces look more like faces rather than just muddy things like they were. But man, this doesn't. Like Luis Guzman's character does. He looks like a monster. It's not what I. That's not what I, in my mind's eye, had, and I don't think most people did. And that's the reason that this game is people are freaking out about the models, right?
Yeah, like they did the the HD remake of Link's Awakening, and but it's not a definitive edition, and they upgraded the graphics, but they made them look good.
Yeah,
and did
there's
plenty
a way to
of
do
play
it, and I feel like they took too much artistic liberty with these.
To finish. I really enjoyed replaying it because that was like the first Zelda game I ever played. Was Link's Awakening on the Game Boy, so getting to play it on the Switch with all the new graphics, I really enjoyed that. And then, but sitting here playing this, I'm just like, it's again, like I can't stress enough how much it feels like old GTA, but like I would want to then just play it without looking at it because like watching it is just it's a strain on the eyes. Like what did you do? How like some characters look. Like, Claude, he doesn't look like Claude, but he looks okay.
Sure.
You know,
like,
for his
if
own...
you separate him from Grand Theft Auto...
Yeah, if he was a completely different character, that's fine. But then, we've pointed out that some of the characters are just, like, grotesque.
I like I said, I think it does have, like, a defined kind of art style to it now. And I compared it to other things on the Unreal Engine before. It feels like these characters could be like, it feels like something you would see in like a Fortnite kind of thing. And it's a defined style, and that style is not for me in the same way that I've mentioned before, like the Edmund McMillan style of Binding of Isaac and Fingered. Like, I just don't like looking at it. It's the same thing for me with these characters. Like, yeah, no, I get it's a style that people use in video games, but I just don't like it. So it sucks that the games have kind of transformed into that. But
I feel like it was really true to the original.
Well, maybe you're going into this, but how do you think it's aged then if it's true to the original?
Yeah, it just that's how it felt to play, and it just there are better feeling games nowadays, you know?
Yeah.
But I mean, it is still really fun to drive a motorcycle in Vice City. Like, like I did have a lot of fun doing that. You know, it is a little wild and zany. But it's still a very enjoyable experience, you know. Is the story great? Not really, but...
That was my takeaway with playing 3. I was shocked how bored I was. Like, the physics nailed it, and I was very nostalgic about about like this jump that I've done 100 times. I just want to find that spot and do those jumps, and it feels the same. That's awesome. And there are some things like the polish that they have, it being a new engine, some lighting effects of like cars blowing up. They're going to look good. There's sometimes like the reflections of shadows and lights is like, wow, this engine looks good. Things can look beautiful, but mostly what worked well for me was like revisiting some of the nostalgic places and that the physics were the same. But my main takeaway from 3 was, wow, the plot is so boring and it feels empty. There's not that much to do. Vice City was a slight improvement on that. And then when I got to San Andreas, like I was playing San Andreas. I wanted to keep checking out the missions and I was kind of invested with the storyline a little bit. So like that's when the game, in my opinion, it's been a slow burn to get us to like GTA 5, where the game is so developed that the world that it is in now. Yeah, the games before that, like it worked its way up there, and you kind of forget that. GTA 3 was pretty rough as far as everything we appreciate that they now have in GTA 5. So yeah, that's so my take on how it's aged. 3 has not aged well. Vice City has aged a little bit better, and San Andreas has aged the best because it's, I guess, the most recent. And like I said, I think they did the most with the 3D universe at that point. So
I think too, what's interesting, because I played basically every Rockstar game that's been out since Vice City, I guess. In the beginning of both Vice City and San Andreas, there are cinematics or missions where it's like you get in the car and you go to a place, and like nowadays Rockstar would totally make you drive that whole time. Like there's no real jumps that like in GTA 5, like there are in Vice City and San Andreas, and it's like they've really learned how to stretch out a game is what really I've learned the most about this whole experience.
Yeah. I guess the last question I have here is, did we need this definitive edition? I'll throw mine in here first. Like I said, I don't think these games have aged well, and it's taken us a long time to get to GTA 5 and GTA Online, what they have to offer. If you were to, with very fond memories of GTA 3, go back and play the original PS2 version of GTA 3, I would posit that you would also be sorely disappointed. Like separating some things with glitches and how they're restyled, the games themselves in 2021, if you're familiar with like the state of games, Red Dead 2, GTA 5, like these aren't enjoyable games by today's standards. There are other sandbox games to play. The missions are mostly bad, and any amount of transferring to a better engine isn't going to change the fact that these like early maps are boring. There aren't interesting vehicles to drive. GTA 3 has essentially like I said, 5 ways to do missions: to drive somewhere, kill someone, spray paint your car, and then crush a car, and I think that was like only 4. So that's basically it. That it was really innovative for the time, but I don't think it needs to be remastered. Like the story is cheesy as hell. Like if you guys watch the beginning thing with Claude, like they're robbing a bank and then his partner betrays him, and then it like goes to like a newspaper shot about like criminal's girlfriend betrays him, hardened criminal, blah blah blah. Like it's just super cheesy. It's not engaging.
Which isn't that Michael's story in GTA 5
yeah, and that's why I thought when I started playing GTA 5, I was like, wait, is this Claude? And it's not, but it slowly gets more interesting with Vice City. As you get into Vice City, not the beginning of Vice City in my opinion, and with San Andreas it's even better still. But still, I don't think we needed this definitive edition, and I hear what they're saying about not wanting to work with the old dev tools anymore. That they want to fix the problems with these games on Unreal 4 rather than Ravenware, I think it was the original engine. But like people who didn't experience these originally, I don't think we need to remaster them and have them experience them in this new engine. I don't think it's like a rite of passage or something that needs to be done. So I don't fully get the need to port these things. So anyway, you guys, did they need to be redefined or be in a definitive edition?
Yeah, I don't mind it. I wish they were more open with it. I wish they didn't unlist the previous versions.
Yeah, for sure.
I feel like that's kind of shitty to some extent. Like you could just there's plenty of games that, we've played them on Steam where they don't work anymore on newer systems. You have to do stuff to make them work, Yeah. You can make that an understanding. Like, hey, look, after a certain point, this isn't going to work anymore.
Yeah.
And you just leave it up to people being able to mod it and figure it out on their own. Like, if they want to do it, they'll do it. I think that's been proven. I'm all for both versions existing. I don't mind this one. I actually kind of like it. I probably will play it in the future. Maybe one day, I don't know. It's a digital project. maybe they can get most of the rights back to some of the songs they had to take off. Because once again, Vice City soundtrack is such hit after hit after hit.
Maybe someone
It's
will
just-
mod it in.
Or
not that
just
Rockstar
really-
has been
yeah, just-
very friendly to the mod community either, but
Yeah, they used to.
But
They
they
are.
should,
They are, and they
yeah.
aren't. You know, because
Yeah.
everyone loves the making my way
Roleplay
downtown
online.
meme. They mod, so it's like CJ's playing a piano, but it's like the piano's a vehicle.
oh yeah, I forgot that's the song he was playing. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
You're right.
So I mean, there's been some really great
I
mods.
can't play that on Twitch. Damn it.
Yeah. Well, you can. I mean,
The
yeah.
song though, I can't play. I can play the
I
clip.
mean, you can. Who's gonna report you, huh?
My initial thought on that is just when I heard it was going to be remade, when I saw that it was available, before I knew that it was hot garbage, I had no desire to buy it. It probably would have been one that, on Steam, I imagine this, even if it was like a really well made, within the year you could get it on Steam for like $10. And I
Right.
might do that. But I just there's something to be said about just the fact that we have so many games that are coming out on a daily, monthly basis that remakes and stuff, I don't think they're going to be doing well for as long as people think they are, right? Like, there's just so much else out there to play. And there's a lot of shovelware, a lot of garbage and whatnot. But I don't know. I had no inclination, no desire to jump back into any of these.
It would have to be a really powerful, impactful kind of nostalgic thing for me to get excited about this. And like I knew, even hearing about the remake, that like GTA 3 is one of the games I spent probably the most time on, but I am well aware that like it was just the physics engine that was impressive about GTA 3. And like I have some good memories of San Andreas and Vice City, but like these aren't things that like it's not a Final Fantasy VII situation where it's like, wow, like another generation auto experience this.
But just play GTA 5. Like,
Or just
is it?
let them make GTA 6
Yeah.
for God's sake.
I feel
there's
like
no reason to like. There's no core like storytelling here that needs to be reinterpreted.
I feel like, unlike a lot of games, GTA is actually a good example of them improving and changing with each one.
Iteration, yeah.
Obviously, it comes with its faults, like what I was talking about with the missions in GTA 5 being like way more linear, and you don't really have a lot of options the way you do stuff. Like it kind of, it's like fake options. Like it's like, oh, we're preparing the heist. Decide on how you want to do it. No, you should be in the heist. Like, oh, if I go through this door, we'll sneak, or if I go through that door, we'll do this. But it comes with its criticisms. But if you were gonna try to be like, oh, you should experience GTA, I don't think I would ever be like, if 5 was out, I don't think I'd be like, oh yeah, you should definitely play GTA 3
Definitely get the definitive edition
or whatever. Like, no, just play 5.
No, I wouldn't recommend.
Like,
Yeah,
you're gonna have a better time. There's a lot more to do, and
it's certainly not like you've like, oh well, you can't just pick up 5, you'll be lost, you got to start at 3. Like, no, I mean these games are an improvement upon each other, so it's weird for preservation purposes to do this, but
and then if you're gonna
I can
preserve
appreciate
it, don't do it this way.
All right. Anyway, like I said, I've barely kept track of the scores. Hunter nailed the Metacritic score. So
Did we give our scores yet?
Not yet.
Thank you, Frank. Frank, you know what?
Sorry.
I'm gonna give you 2, Frank, but Hunter's gonna get 10 because he got the Metacritic score perfect.
I'll take it.
All right.
Now you're just changing
yes.
the scoring system.
Frank, our optimistic rater, what do you think? What kind of score would you give this game here?
I want to be honest. I didn't play Grand Theft Auto 3. All right?
Mhm.
So this is technically,
Yeah.
I don't know if this is a
2
legal
out of the
score or
3.
not. I'm gonna give it, because it really did feel like San Andreas and Vice City.
It's all come down to this.
I'm gonna say
This is the tough one.
a 7.
7. Okay, positive 7 from Frank. Hunter, what do you think?
It's definitely not going to be that high. I can't get over the graphics. This didn't need to happen. I think the fact that they botched it on top of it just shows that they knew that this didn't need to happen and that it was like a pure cash grab. Like it
Right.
sounds like they were literally like, let's put as few people as possible on it, get it done as quickly as possible, put it out for the 20th anniversary, regardless of how terrible it is. You're gonna make a profit, and just we'll go from there. I guess I'll give it like a 3, just because like again, it feels like GTA, but
Yeah.
play GTA 5 so you don't have to look at this. You don't have to. You get all of the quality of life. You get better weapons. You get all the fun random stuff you can do. Like it could also just be that the nostalgia is not really there for me. Like I didn't miss it. I played GTA 5 and I was like, yeah, this is my game.
It's still the GTA experience. Yeah, I agree. I'm not sure the need for this. And I hear what they're saying, like not wanting to support it anymore, but just then don't support it anymore. If someone really wants to play GTA 3, I don't know, grab it on the original version or the versions that they had out were fine, and mod support
Download
as well,
a hacked version of it. Like,
not official GGN advice,
no,
but you do you.
Just, come to my channel for bad advice.
Hunter's hot takes on pirating games.
Yeah, there's this new program called LimeWire where I get all of my games from.
I've struggled with us talking about me accepting games in their current state and knowing they're going to be supported, and I know that they're going to fix this game up better than it is, and so it'll get a higher score, but all I can do is rate it as it is right now. And the amount of glitches that it's come out, its launch failure, it's all very funny to me, so I will go into the negatives, because I also don't think it's really needed. I think it is very much a cash grab, and maybe someday it'll be at a state that it's like worthy of buying, but it's not right now. So I'll go -4, because I've really enjoyed all the glitches and I got to experience some of them. And like I was saying before, Frank kindly corrected me that I hadn't gotten scores yet, and he got 2 points for that, but that doesn't really matter. Hunter still is at a 12 and Tom is at a -100, unless he joins. Maybe he can work his way up to like a -98 or something. You never know. But the reward, I was scanning the interwebs for some 3D models, and there are plenty out there for like people who pulled from the original GTA games. One of my favorite ones, the most iconic I felt from the original GTA game, it is called the GTA Rhino tank. That is the tank that has like the big door on the side. I don't understand why it has a big door. I imagine for modeling reasons, but I have printed out a GTA Rhino tank here, and you can see it on stream. Yeah. It is a very nice model. It's a very shiny purple 3D model.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so congratulations, Hunter. You'll be receiving a Rhino tank. All right, well, that is our review of Grand Theft Auto 3: the Trilogy Definitive Edition. Is it the definitive? It's the definitive edition.
This is the definitive edition.
Mm-hmm. That has been the GGN.
All clips in this podcast were used in compliance with the U.S. Copyright Fair Use Exemption for criticism and commentary. Garbage Game Night makes no claims to ownership over any games played and has no affiliation with any developer or publishing company. For additional references on cited articles and quotes, check our episode-related blog at garbagegamenight.com. Or if you have a comment about the game we reviewed or have a suggestion, drop us a line.